For a brief moment, the entire paddock went silent. Engines were roaring in the background, mechanics rushed between garages, and cameras from every major broadcaster pointed toward the pit lane. It looked like any other high-profile weekend in Formula One. But then something unusual happened. A black race helmet was carefully lowered over the head of someone the sport had never seen behind the wheel of a Formula One car before. The visor came down. A crew member tightened the gloves. And standing just a few feet away, watching closely, was seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. Inside the cockpit sat global music icon Beyonce. At first, many people inside the garage thought it was a joke. A promotional stunt. Maybe a quick photo opportunity. After all, Beyonce was one of the biggest entertainers in the world. She had performed at stadiums across the globe, dominated charts for decades, and built a reputation for doing things on her own terms. But Formula One cars? Those machines were among the most complex, dangerous, and demanding vehicles on Earth. Even professional drivers took years to master them. So when the car's engines suddenly fired to life, screaming with that unmistakable high-pitched Formula One sound, every conversation stopped. Because in that moment, people realized something. This wasn't just a publicity stunt. This was real. And what happened next would eventually end up inside one of the most watched sports documentaries in the world, Formula One. Drive to Survive on Netflix. But to understand how that surreal moment even became possible, we have to rewind. Because the truth is, this story didn't start at a racetrack. It started years earlier, and almost no one saw it coming. When people think of Beyoncé, they imagine sold-out stadium tours, flawless choreography, and performances that redefine pop culture. When they think of Lewis Hamilton, they picture a driver pushing a Formula One car to the edge of physics at 200 miles per hour. Two completely different worlds. Music and motorsport rarely collide in meaningful ways. Yes, celebrities attend races. Yes, singers perform during race weekends. But actually stepping into the cockpit of a Formula One machine? That simply doesn't happen. The risks are too high. The learning curve is too steep. And the sport itself is built around elite drivers who have trained their entire lives for moments on the track. So when rumors first began circulating that Beyoncé had filmed something with Lewis Hamilton, something that might appear in Formula One, Drive to Survive, fans were confused. Was it a cameo? A concert appearance? Maybe a behind-the-scenes interview? But when the episode finally dropped on Netflix, viewers realized the truth was far more unexpected. Because the footage didn't show Beyoncé standing beside a race car. It showed her inside one. And suddenly, millions of viewers had the same question. How did this even happen? To understand the significance of that moment, you have to understand who these two people are. For over 2 decades, Beyoncé has been one of the most influential performers in the world. She built her career through relentless discipline, rehearsing for hours, perfecting every detail, treating every show like a carefully engineered production. And that dedication made her a global phenomenon. But something people sometimes forget about Beyoncé is that she has always been fascinated by precision and performance, not just in music, but in life itself. The choreography of a concert, the timing of lighting cues, the synchronization between musicians, dancers, and stage effects. To her, everything was about rhythm and control. Ironically, those are also the same qualities that define Formula One. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Lewis Hamilton had spent nearly his entire life inside race cars. By the time he became a 7-time world champion, he had already secured his place as one of the greatest drivers in the history of Formula One. But Hamilton was never just a racing driver. He had always been deeply connected to music, fashion, and culture. He attended fashion shows, collaborated with designers, and frequently spoke about the importance of creativity outside of sport. In many ways, Hamilton and Beyoncé shared something unusual. They were both perfectionists, both global icons, and both constantly searching for new challenges. Still, The idea that their worlds would literally collide on a Formula One track seemed impossible. At least, at first. The idea reportedly began during a private event connected to Formula One, a gathering filled with celebrities, athletes, and industry insiders. Music played in the background. Drivers mingled with guests. And eventually, Lewis Hamilton and Beyoncé found themselves talking. At first, the conversation was casual. Music, travel, touring. But then the topic shifted to racing. Hamilton began describing what it felt like to drive a Formula One car. The speed, the physical strain, the way the car seemed to react instantly to even the smallest movement. Beyoncé listened carefully, curious, focused. Then she asked a simple question. What does it actually feel like? Hamilton smiled. Because that question is almost impossible to answer. You can explain the speed. You can describe the G-forces. But until someone experiences it, they never truly understand. So Hamilton said something unexpected. You should try it. At first, Beyoncé laughed. It sounded absurd. She had performed in front of hundreds of thousands of people. But the idea of driving a Formula One car? That was something entirely different. Still, the thought stayed with her. And sometimes, the most unexpected ideas become reality. Weeks later, conversations quietly began behind the scenes. Producers connected to Formula One, Drive to Survive, were always searching for compelling stories. Moments that showed the human side of the sport. Something fans had never seen before. And suddenly, they had an idea that felt almost too bold. What if Beyoncé actually experienced a Formula One car? Not just sitting in it. Not just posing for photos. But truly experiencing the machine with guidance from Lewis Hamilton. Of course, the logistical challenges were enormous. Safety regulations. Insurance issues. Technical restrictions. Formula One teams are extremely protective of their equipment. Letting a non-driver near one of their cars is already rare. Letting them drive? Almost unheard of. But the potential was undeniable. If it worked, it would be one of the most unforgettable moments ever captured for the series. And so, quietly, plans began forming. Before Beyoncé ever touched the steering wheel of a Formula One car, she had to go through preparation. Real preparation. Professional drivers spend years building the strength needed to handle the forces inside those machines. Under heavy braking, the body experiences enormous pressure. Neck muscle strain. Arms fight against steering resistance. Even breathing becomes difficult. So the first step wasn't the racetrack. It was training, simulators, coaching sessions, safety briefings. And through it all, Lewis Hamilton remained involved. Not just as a driver, but as a mentor. According to people close to the production, Hamilton was impressed by something almost immediately. Beyoncé approached the challenge exactly the same way she approached music, with discipline, focus, and an almost obsessive attention to detail. She asked endless questions, studied the controls, practiced repeatedly in the simulator. Because if she was going to do this, she wanted to do it right. Eventually, the day arrived. A quiet test session had been arranged. Minimal crowds. Controlled conditions. Cameras rolling for Formula One. Drive to Survive. Inside the garage, engineers checked every system. Mechanics inspected the car. Helmets and safety equipment were prepared. And standing beside the car was Lewis Hamilton. He had seen thousands of drivers sit in Formula One cars. But today was different, because the person about to climb into the cockpit was one of the most recognizable figures on Earth. Then the moment came. Beyoncé stepped toward the car. The crew members helped guide her into the tight cockpit. The steering wheel was attached, gloves secured, helmet lowered. Inside the garage, conversation stopped, because suddenly, the idea that once sounded impossible had become reality. And when the engine finally started, everything changed. But what happened during that lap shocked even the people who organized it. And the footage that eventually appeared on Netflix revealed something no one expected. Because halfway through that experience, something happened that even Lewis Hamilton didn't see coming. And that moment would become one of the most talked about scenes in the entire history of Formula One, Drive to Survive.